Good morning, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for our Pamoja corporate philanthropy session. We are very honored today to have Ms. Mpho Mpofu from Masutane Consulting, who will be sharing with us around the challenges that entrepreneurs face around mental health. This session really emanates from a report that she wrote for Old Mutual, which was published, I think, late last year, around the entrepreneurial well-being and how mental health features as a core part of that. As you know, it's not easy to be an entrepreneur. I think most people always use that statement that it's not easy to be an entrepreneur. But often people don't talk about what is it that's not easy. And I think that's where the mental health question comes in, discussing what it means not to be well. Of course, she will obviously highlight a lot more into that, but we felt that it was important for us to hold space for this conversation because it's really important. And as you know, if entrepreneurs are not well, it doesn't only affect them, it affects the people that they work with, it affects the businesses that they run, but it ultimately affects the quality of the products and services that they provide to the wider economy. So this is a really, really important topic. And I really hope that today will be kind of given a lot more perspective and insights into why it's important to care about the mental health of entrepreneurs, and for each of us to play a role in supporting those that we know could be struggling, or need help or need attention, or need even support, in order for them to be able to address some of the problems that they have. So thank you so much, Ms. Mpho. We're very honored to have you. I will then hand it over to you to take it from here. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm also very excited to see a person that I admire very greatly, whom I consider a mentor as well in the session, Ududu Mofokeng. Um, so that's a pleasant surprise. So yes, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context in terms of how I want to approach this presentation. So I'm a consumer insight specialist primarily and a researcher. That's my core profession. So I'm by no means a therapist or a psychologist, or even though I did study psychology. So I'm not talking from that perspective. I'm speaking from a perspective of a researcher. But the other half of my life, I work as a mentor in incubation programs, institutions of higher learning, etc., and in organizations. I work as a facilitator, working with institutions of higher learning, and I work as a speaker as well. So I'm going to draw from two aspects of my career, working as a mentor, working with entrepreneurs, and also the data from this particular study, to also just share some more insights around those two dimensions of the work that I do. So Old Mutual SME Go, I think now we all know that they'd gone into banking. I think what was good about the process that they took to develop products and solutions for entrepreneurs was that we're not going in without the real understanding of what entrepreneurs, who they are and what they're going through, and what their real needs are. And this was towards the build up around mental health awareness and mental health month. And that's when they commissioned this particular product. And I think what was universal, it was 138 entrepreneurs across the country, and everybody felt that sense of just being isolated, thinking that this is only happening to them. And that's why I've titled this talk, particularly You're Not Alone, because everybody thought that they were alone. And yet, so many were experiencing the same thing. And I think this is important for us as entrepreneurs. I think, let me add a third lens as an entrepreneur myself. I think it's important for us to to manage this idea of isolation. There's a lot around isolation, and I think the isolation comes from being from burnout and just really not having the answers, having your back against the wall. Sometimes even shame of just not understanding why things are not working out. Sometimes it's just others not understanding your journey and what your journey requires, and this pushes us back into isolation. So I think it is important that we understand first and foremost that we're not alone. So we already have an ecosystem of other entrepreneurs who are going through the same journey that we can leverage from the onset. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that came out. So this was a key highlight of the research. The way we collected the data, there was a lot of voice notes that people sent us, lots of videos. They wrote. There was a lot of expression, and it was over a period of time. People came back and just kept on sharing their experiences. 3 o'clock. There was one particular quote, somebody saying it's 3:17 in the morning and I'm doing this voice note. People are up at night, and these entrepreneurs, when they're up at night, they are thinking erratically about tomorrow, about month end, about making ends meet, about figuring out where the money is going to come from. How am I going to manage stock? How am I going to manage salaries? It's calculations in the head that are perpetually going. And I think this is where part of our problem starts to kind of take root, in these endless thoughts that we can manage, and they start to create so much noise in our heads that we can't really make sense of what's going on in our day-to-day lives. So a lot of us at the beginning of our journey, we are everything in the organization. So, you're the finance person, you're the marketing person, you HR, you are the chef, you are everything. And outside of all of that, you are still possibly a father, a partner, a brother, a uncle, a son, a daughter, a community member, all these other aspects. So the pressure that entrepreneurs then feel from this being up in the middle of the night and the mind racing, the process of deterioration, a lot of them said it starts here when the mind is so loud that you can't stop it. And you start, this is when you start to recede really into the background, and the isolation starts to set in. They told us about a lot of weight problems that they start encountering. So eating disorders, eating too much, eating too little. Okay, sleep deprivation is another major one. High blood pressure. They spoke about diabetes, all sorts of other diseases start to emanate from this process of this thought buildup on a daily basis, this getting overwhelmed and no coping mechanisms in place to manage this entire process. The other thing that came out was a lot of the entrepreneurs thought that if I make more money or when I make more money, things are going to get better. And what they realized is that each stage of the journey had its own type of pressure. At the beginning of the journey, it's the survival, it's trying to make it work, it's trying to, meet your break-even point. It's just trying to get by and building a system that's potentially going to work. And there's a lot of survival anxiety at this stage, the mental calculations. Because am I going to make enough? Am I going to meet that break-even point? If I don't, where is the money going to come from? And beyond that stage, we saw that at that 500,000 to 1 million rand mark, you start to see that, okay, I'm building something here and it's growing. But now there is this pressure. Firstly, is to to understand the growth, be prepared for the growth, be able to manage the growth, but most importantly, sustain the growth. Because when there's growth, there's additional resourcing. So there's more people to manage. There's potentially more financing that's required, or there's more financing that needs to be managed. There's more compliance that comes into play, etc. So the growth pressure also then comes in and adds a different type of layer. And then again, as you grow, then they spoke about then, at that 5 million rand mark, there's now pressure from other stakeholders. People who are financing. Some people spoke about having a board that they have to be accountable to. They also spoke about a growth in employee numbers. But what is also interesting is that when you achieve growth as an entrepreneur, they spoke about there's now expectations from others in the community to contribute. So the ecosystem and your dependence, they grow, and you are the person that everybody is looking up to. So the intensity with each and every stage, it grows, and it all rests on the shoulders of the entrepreneur. And really what this showed us was that it really is important that at each stage of the journey, we then start to have the right tools in place to be able to assist us. So at survival level, example, when there's that survival anxiety at the beginning of the journey, what ecosystem can I have that can help me with my funding needs? Could it be my network, my family, my friends? Could it be my stokvel? Could it be a banking relationship that I have? How am I going to manage that? As we have growth, who do I have around me that has been through this road before, that can guide me, that can help me, understand what is happening and how to manage it? What tools and resources do I need, etc. So at each and every level, it is indicating that as we journeying, we need to be capacitated and resourced in a certain way to be able to manage this level of anxiety that we have, so that we're not ending up on our own the whole time. This was very interesting because the WhatsApp, and this is across the continent, and in other markets as well, like Brazil, India, etc. The penetration of WhatsApp, and just as such an accessible, easy to engage tool. It's informal, it's very, very quick. Um, as much as it's done so much for giving people access to markets, opportunities, and to engage in business, the flip side of that, it has left entrepreneurs feeling always on, you know. Um, and a lot of them spoke about customers will complain, they will say, "Umblutikile," why didn't you respond? This is on a Friday evening, you're sitting with your family and you're having dinner. This is on Sunday morning, you are taking your hike, or you're at church. So it doesn't have boundaries. And entrepreneurs felt like they just were not able to manage this boundaryless environment that WhatsApp has created. So it's a double-edged sword. It's given them access to business, but it's just opened a door that really doesn't manage the boundaries and separating work and personal life. And this adds pressure. They talk about the impact that it has on the family. You're not always present. You are half here and you half somewhere else. The body is here, but your mind is somewhere else. Again, this was a critical learning to say, what systems do we have in place as entrepreneurs to manage our time, to manage our recuperation process? How do we recuperate? How do we refresh so that we back in full form and we can perform at our highest level? How do we protect those boundaries? How do we protect family time? How do we protect the other dimensions of our lives? Time for self, time for family, time for growth and development for yourself. And I think even talking to the stakeholders in this particular project, I think this was just really one of the key insights to say, how do we develop tools and resources that add value in a way that entrepreneurs are able to manage their time so that they absolutely efficient when they're at work and they're able to cut off when they need to. But it's also about building relationships with your clients and your client base to also understand that these are the operating hours, and then we will attend to your situation the next day. And I think at the beginning of the journey, entrepreneurs are very scared to create those boundaries because you need the business, you need the work. But they do say we have to start with the end in mind. We need to start to behave in our minds and in our operations in the way that we see our brand in the future, even when we don't have everything that we need. And those are important parameters that we need to start thinking about to protect our own mental health. So there were other logistical things that were, that came out as adding to this mental burden and frustration for entrepreneurs. A lot of them at the beginning of the journey just being stuck in red tape. Things like CIPC registration, not being able to get the documents. Sometimes, there's certain financing that's required to be able to requires to access certain documents, lack of knowledge, etc. How do you do things? What is the process? And when you are trapped and you're in that limbo, you also excluded from formal opportunities because you are not formally compliant or documented. Um, a lot of the women that we spoke to said to us that they are willing to get help. They felt that they are in a place that they actually need help and they are willing to get help. But there's a perception that things like therapy, seeking mental assistance is an expensive exercise. And I think was one of the key highlights for the organization to say, how do we make things like therapy, having access to experts, accessible, affordable. But beyond that, I think the other thing that was coming out strongly was some entrepreneurs were just not really sure of what the value of things like therapy or seeing someone talking, what is the value of that when I can't meet my expenses at the end of the month? How is that going to help me? So getting entrepreneurs to understand how certain tools and resources can help them in this journey is very important. I think there's a lot of assumption that we all know what to do, but it's not that simple. So it's not an issue of just affordability. It was also an issue of education and understanding what is available to me and how is it going to help me. Um, Men, it was very interesting because they carry a lot more shame. They carry a whole lot more of the burden. And they take the failure more harshly. Because everybody is looking up to them, expecting them to be succeeding and to be providing. There was a lot of talk about, you become less of a man in your home environment, etc. And this adds immense pressure to entrepreneurs. It destroys confidence and pushes back into that isolation. But one of the big issues was that men were just not very willing to come forward and to just talk about these issues. Only 23% said, look, I would be willing to speak to someone because I can feel that I'm not coping. And as we all know, a bulk of the entrepreneurs are at the beginning of the journey, in that foundations phase, really needing a lot of support, not just emotionally, but I think structurally, foundationally, helping them to build ecosystems. So these were the really major tension points around how do we begin the journey of assisting entrepreneurs. Then we asked them about what are the current solutions that they're using and are working for them at the moment. And I think what was really, really interesting was faith and prayer. Um, I I don't have it in the slide. We specifically ask about the role of drugs, alcohol, etc. And it was interesting. Only about 5 or 7%, I think it's about 5% spoke about that. That I use that as an escape and a coping mechanism. But it was interesting how, and very true to South Africa, that faith, whether it's cultural or spiritual and or religious, faith and prayer came into play. So, going back to church networks, going back to community networks, going back to their roots and, that kind of thing. So that came out very strongly as an anchor in this journey. But physical exercise, a lot of them spoke about understanding the importance of exercise, walking, being out in nature. They spoke about eating, the quality of the food that they eat, etc. To say we need to build those things in because you're always on. There's no time to stop. Um, Ecosystems, when you talk about family support, and it's not just family, it's friends, it's the community, that you need to have an ecosystem that is able to support you when you can't support yourself. They've learned to go to people and say, please, can you take the children? I'm not doing okay. Please, can you help me look after the children because I need to go in on a Sunday morning, etc. So having an ecosystem of people that you trust, that you can depend on, also very important. So we can see also that these coping mechanisms are about pulling yourself out of isolation and going into spaces where others are able to support you and help you. And I think the other interesting one was the reference to traditional healers. People spoke about going and getting herbs for sleeping, something that you can burn in your home. It helps you to relax and sleep. Chewing certain bark to help with the calming, topical ointments, for calming, etc. Some people spoke about things that they can put in their water, salts, etc., to relax the body because there's so much tension. So it was a combination of different things that people were looking to. But what was also very interesting, similar to the alcohol story, was just there was not a lot of talk that I speak to someone, I seek professional help, and I go to a therapist. If anything, there was a lot of confusion around what is the value. I'm going to have to pay in. I'm already struggling with finances. What am I going to get out of this money that I'm going to pay? And I think this was a very interesting insight in itself. Now, when we sort of explored this conversation further, a lot of them started to then say, the minute I started to have tools and systems in place, using certain apps, it would be simple things like banking apps, invoicing apps, time management app, any app that was helping them manage a certain type of process within their business function, it helped them reduce some degree of strength. And this is exactly what SME Go was trying to do, to say, what tools and resources should we have in place that will reduce the burden, especially the administrative burden of running a business? Compliance, marketing, finance, human resourcing, technology. Now we've got issues around AI, et cetera, et cetera. So the more they learned around certain tools, technologies, the easier things got, the less stressful it became. And I think this is important as an empowerment tool for ourselves when we think about resourcing and capacitating ourselves and our teams to say, what can we automate? What can we standardize? what investments can we make? Can we afford another 200 Rand to pay for this app to help us with this and that and that and that? And so, we have to adapt the way that we approach business from the beginning of the journey. All right. So in closing, I think we really need to have very quick solutions to this because the reality of it, there was a lot of talk around suicidal thoughts, number of people that have contemplated suicide, number of people who are contemplating suicide, um, you know, because of the stressful situation that they're in. Let's have somebody that we can go to. And I'm glad that an incredible mentor like Dudu Mofokeng is here. But have somebody that you can go and talk to, people that have been there before. There's people in our churches, there's people in our communities, there's people in our work environments. It could be a client, it could be a supplier, people that we admire. Let's have somebody, it could be a spouse. Let's have somebody that we can go to and talk about this. They're going to expose us to another lens that we're not thinking about. So remember, when we're in that state, it's very difficult to see clearly. We are foggy. We are not in a right state of mind. Somebody who comes in from the outside looks from a different perspectives and helps us to work through the problems one step at a time. Um, Everybody saw by walking and going out in nature. And really, this is point 2 and 3 is about disconnection. We have to teach ourselves to disconnect. And I know that it's very hard, but we have to. We have to disconnect. We have to be able to say, at this time, my phone is off. And the world is not going to come to an end at all. But because I have to take care of myself. Right? Taking the walk and just notifications, or those things are keeping us wired. We are just unable to relax. And the tragedy about being in this state of chaos is that we are unable to tap into our creative self, right? We are unable to tap into that problem-solving mode, which is our primary function as business owners, solving problems for our customers and our clients, for communities, for countries, for nations, solving those problems. We are unable to do that when we're in that state. So it is an asset that we have to protect, just like our bank accounts, just like our machinery, our equipment, our state of mind is our biggest asset, and we need to protect it with everything that we've got. All right, so I feel like I have to end with saying that SADC is available to all of us. We can call them at any time, and they will be able to talk us down from the ledge. And half the time, it's not as terrifying as it seems. But because it's new territory all the time, it feels a little bit overwhelming. So let's make sure that we've got somebody else who's there to help us see things from a different perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. This was really, 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 really like insightful, relevant, like relatable, as well as such a call to remember that we are not alone, like you said, but more so to remember that there's many people who are stuck on different stages of this journey, and the outcomes of them being stuck can look good for some because they progress, but for some that could essentially be the end of the journey. And so it's a really great wake up call, but also a great reminder of the space that we're in. We have a few minutes, and I'm really open to about 5 minutes or so to maybe get anyone who might want to ask a question, share a comment. While we have the space and the time. Thank you. Anyone can just go for it. You're welcome.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much, Mpho, for such a very, very informative presentation. I feel like after listening to it, it was very authentic and I had so much reflection to do. Because I'm not really an entrepreneur right now, but like as a student, I understand everything that you just talked about and how for black men, well, not only black men, but like men in general, it's quite easy to just push your mental health on the side, not consider it. And I really think that it's something that we need to start being comfortable with and actually being comfortable talking about how we feel because you're right. Mental health is the foundation, and if it's forsaken, then we don't really have a foundation, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. So shout out to the amazing work that you're doing. Very
Mm,
inspired.
thanks. Can I make a comment to that? I think the best way, especially for males, to really think about this is um, uh, I'm a spiritual person, not particularly religious, but this is where this is coming from, is that if you think of our individuality and our uniqueness and the gifts that each and every single one of us brings to this world, they all here in our head, in our minds, in our being. So it's a place that we need to be constantly be able to tap into to grow and to move on to the next phase of our lives. And when we allow that to crash and burn because we are not seeking the assistance or, we are sitting in the isolation, we depriving actually ourselves of the opportunity to become the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we get caught up so much in chasing the next thing, all forsaking our mental health. You're absolutely right.
Thanks, Aya and Paul. I think for me, Paul, I just wanted to ask you, so maybe a bit more about your organization and how you continuously support entrepreneurs in different journeys and different phases, or with maybe speaking a bit about how we can approach you, how we can work with you, and how we can engage with you on some of the work that you do. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think for many, many years, it's always been a passion of mine to expose entrepreneurs to the work that we do, which is consumer insights. Um, and market research is a very broad discipline. It's got many components, specialist components. And consumer insights is a very, very small industry, even globally, but immense amounts of money are spent by organizations to understand people. Similarly, with what Old Mutual did, they embarked on a journey to understand people. And why that is important for organizations is because people are emotional beings. So if you go out now and start paying attention to your spending patterns and how you operate with money, start paying attention to the emotions that are linked to money. When money has to go out, when money has to come in, how you behave when it goes out, when it comes in, all anchored around emotions. And when we don't have a full understanding of that psychology as entrepreneurs, it becomes very difficult for us to always be able to get the money outside of that consumer pocket. And corporate companies and big organizations invest millions and millions and millions to understand that emotional connection so that they can successfully, month after month, day after day, get you to take out that amount of money and spend it with them. I had a chat with another entrepreneur who was saying they are complaining that my plate of food for 60 Rand is expensive. But look, at KFC though, for 2 pieces of chicken, they're spending the same, nama chips I for, they're spending the same amount, right? And he's saying, but my plate is bigger, there's more meat and whatever. And this is where this comes in, right? It's the understanding of the psychology behind how people engage with money, how people engage with brands, people engage with products, and the emotions that are attached to it. So it's a very, very powerful skill and tool for organizations to have. It's always been something that's inaccessible to small businesses because it's so expensive to access consumer insights. It's so niche. But at Masutane, we've said no to that. It's consumer insights and market research is a basic human right because you need it for strategy, you need it for growth, you need to outsmart your components, but you need it for relationship building with your customers. So that door for us is always open to say, that's why I work with the incubators, that's why I work with institutions of higher learnings to create this awareness to say consumer insights is important, but also just making tools accessible to entrepreneurs at very affordable costs to say, this is how you can access research and this is how it can help you.
Thank you so much. But I think we've got about 1 minute left, so I think we'll close it up here. Really honored to have had you today, and I'm sure we'll continue to work together. I think it's nice to obviously hear a bit more about your work and your delivery, and we all look forward to collaborating with you in different ways. In particular, for some of the work that we're doing, we're certainly looking forward to keeping in touch and seeing how we can strengthen more entrepreneurial well-being within the